welcome back. We're still discussing promoting quality education in Nigeria. We'll go through this takes me to another question. It says, what is government policy on education and how does it affect the system?
Oh, wow. Of course, you cannot talk about education in Nigeria without talking about what policies the government have put in place. I mean, but I'm going to focus much more on what we do with the policies. I mean, we know about the universal basic education. It's a very beautiful privilege for students to have free education for the first 9 years, primary school and junior secondary. There are also national policies. There's a TET fund, for example. But I want to focus on what we do with these policies. The policies are supposed to discourage inequity, educational inequity, make education accessible to everyone, regardless of your community, your tribe, rural, urban, tribe, gender. We're supposed to have policies that encourage training and retraining of teachers, effective monitoring of the process, making sure that what is in the curriculum is what is obtainable in the school. And of course, talking about the curriculum, we need to have policies that make sure that it is always up to date with the current realities of the time. We cannot be churning out a workforce for a work that no longer exists. We must be up to date with our curriculum, and these are the areas the policy must attend to. But here's the funny thing. There is a difference between policy outcome and policy output. The policy output is everything we articulate. We need to get this done. This needs to be addressed. That needs to be addressed. We need to do this way, do that way. But the policy outcome is what the layman eventually sees out there that translates from the output. Herein lies the problem. The outcome, most times, is usually different from the output. Sometimes we have wonderful, laudable policies, but breaking it down from the government and the educational board down to the school and teachers, down to the parents and teachers, and you see that we don't get the outcome that we expect. And these three categories of people, which we may talk about later, talking about the government and educational board on one hand, talking about the schools and the teachers on the second hand, and parents and students, they all contribute to the effectiveness or the result we get from these policies if they are laudable. So these are things that we must bear in mind as well.
The policies are always the implementation and enforcement has always been the issue.
Challenge.
Has always been the challenge we have, not only in the educational sector, but other things. Indeed. We have good, policies that have been put in place, but do we put them into use? Are those who even commit offense, are they being penalized and punished for it? So these are issues. And I think our government really need to sit up in this aspect so that these policies will actually be put in place. We're all clamoring for good Nigeria. These are some of the areas, though, that we really need to look into critically. True. Lastly, the roles of the government, examination bodies, and school owners, including parents, in promoting quality education are enormous.
Indeed.
To react to this, please.
Yes, please. So I would like to look at education as a table that stands on three legs, like we've articulated. Government, educational board, and stakeholders up there on one leg. Then we have the examination board, which I want to include the schools for the sake of the context we are talking about now, on the other leg. And then the third leg is the students and the parents. These are the legs that make education stand upright as it ought to be. These are the legs that contribute to the quality we are looking for. Now, what's the role of government? Government is at the helm of affairs, should be at the helm of affairs when it comes to education. And I want to say this real quick. Education should not be just something that the government wants to fund, one of the projects that we just want to allocate some money to. It should be the chief and the core focus of the nation, of the government of the nation. Education should be the baby of the nation. And so when we're talking about funding, we're not talking about just giving just a bit of our monies to education. We're talking about the heart of the nation. So it must be well funded. Policy policy creation is also a function of the government and the agencies it puts in place to formulate these policies. And we must be careful about the kind of policies that we churn out, because we're talking about affecting lives of young people. And who they will be tomorrow will be a function of the policies, educational policies that we put in place today. When we talk about the examination boards, and I want to include the schools, of course, education must be tested. And the way and manner you test for knowledge must be in line with what you have included in your policies and what you intend to achieve. So the likes of JAMB, WAEC, NECO, these are some of the examination bodies we have. And they must do their own due diligence to make sure that the testing process is standardized. Now, people will argue, should we have a standardized process like one examination for all kinds of students? You may want to take cue from what happens in Finland, where there is the emphasis on standardized education, where every student is addressed and tested according to his or her own peculiarity. But yes.
We don't do that yet.
We haven't gotten to that level yet. So let's just focus on where our strength lies. But whatever the testing method is, we must ensure that it's something that the students themselves can relate with. It's in line with what they have been taught. It's in line with what they understand. And it's something that would make them to be able to solve problems in the future and in their environment. Now let's talk about parents and students themselves. Now this is it's an issue that is very dear to my heart, because we often talk about the government. We talk about the examination board. I mean, recently we just had the issue of Miss Omar, who was, allegedly doctored her results, falsified her results and all of that. I want to believe, no matter how the argument goes, that she was not working alone.
No.
I mean, a child is a product of society. Yeah. The school is involved, there's peer pressure involved, and there is this problem of competition rather than collaboration. The news has it that she's a head girl of the school. So she wants to feel, as a head girl, I should come out with this kind of grade.
And she's intelligent on her own.
She is. To score 240 something, that's beautiful. Even with the way we test our students, we push them to be extra competitive rather than introspective and collaborative about life. And I think that's probably one of the reasons that she did what she did. I'm not. Yeah, of course, I can't speak for her, but I can just look at it from the way I see it. Now, parents, just yesterday I was talking with a proprietor of a school who was telling me how a parent would insist that the child who is underage for a particular class must be promoted, regardless of what the school thinks. They say things like, Basira's child at this age was in this class. Is it my own that will be different? Not understanding that the school and the curriculum and the policies have a way of situating each child in the position the child ought to be at the time. But we keep on pressurizing the school and making them, bending their hands against the will and the better knowledge of the school to push their children to classes that they may be intellectually competent, but they are not emotionally mature yet. So parents need to understand that the schools have the best interest of their child in mind, and they should respect the decisions of the school and not keep throwing threats. And we're talking about quality education here. You want your child in the future to be in good standing in society. So let the school, we're talking about parents now, let the school do their jobs and be encouraging of the efforts of the school. Don't be overbearing or over-demanding. And another thing we must talk about is how much encouragement we get from parents with regard to the education of their children. Sometimes children even come home and not many parents would ask them, what did you learn? What were you taught?
You don't have time.
Monitoring must be at different levels. We need to have checks and balances, and we need to have checks and balances for those checks and balances we have. So at every stage, there is a monitoring system. There is a way of checking, is it proper? Is this what we expect? How is this child progressing? And the parents cannot fold their arms and leave it all to the school. Remember the three legs, the government, the examination board, And the schools, and then we have the parents and the students themselves. These legs need to work together to make sure that every part supplies the needs of the others, and education goes from where it is now to where it should be in the nearest future, which is better, of course.
This is VVV